Yachts and boats, commercial marine, high-performance boats. Yep, we've gone boating. Arrowhead Marine Insurance, available coast to coast.
D&O liability coverage is changing all the time, and no two policies are the same. As Susanne Murray, an Executive Vice President for Alliant Insurance Services, points out, the customer has a say in what's covered and what's not. In this interview with Insurance Journal's Andy Simpson at the recent Professional Liability Underwriting Society's D&O conference, Murray discusses the customer's role and whether more coverage means higher cost.
There's really no one insurance carrier who gives all the bells and whistles that you could possibly ask for. There are pros and cons to all insurance carriers. Some are very strong in this area, others in another area. And that largely goes to how the insurance carrier, each insurance carrier, evaluates risk. It really does. And what risk are they willing to underwrite, and what risks are they simply not? And different carriers have different ideas as to what's more or less significant or problematic. So that's definitely a differentiating factor as between insurance carriers. But the other part of that is, what about insureds? So there is this evolution in coverage. There is this increase in coverage. More and more is being covered by the insurance policy, including fines and penalties coverage as an example. So then an insured has to say, do I want it all? Do I want as broad of coverage as I can get? And by the way, most say yes. Or do I want to actually give some careful thought to the extent of coverage under this policy and how much I dilute that coverage by adding more and more and more to it? This is not an automatic. This is a question worth asking and a discussion worth having. Fines and penalties as an example. Some companies are going to say, I appreciate the fact that I can get total coverage for all fines and penalties, criminal penalties, civil penalties, whatever they may be under this policy. But I don't want to, because those are supposed to be punitive, as you began this conversation. Those are supposed to be imposed against an individual because of that individual's wrongdoing. Do I, as a company, want to encourage that? Do I, as a company, want to look like I'm okay with that kind of activity that resulted in a fine or penalty? Or do I, as a company, want to say, if that happens, I believe you're now a black hat, and I don't want to waste my insurance policy on that type of exposure. Now, again, most companies do provide, get as many expansions as possible, but it's worthy of a discussion. And as you get broader and broader coverage, the question also should become, if I'm covering everything, do I need more insurance? Because so many things can tap into my limits that I could be spending them in dribs and drabs on all of these different things and ultimately run out of limits. Should I buy more? Today, the coverage is so extraordinarily different than it was 10 years ago. And again, I mean, the idea is, if I'm going to spend money, I want it to be covered by the policy. If I have to go defend this, if I have to go pay that damage, that settlement, I want it covered by the policy. If I've got a fine or a penalty imposed against me while I've been working at this company in connection with my job here, I want it covered by the policy. Are they paying more for these different types of coverage expansions? And generally speaking, they're not. We have insurance carriers who introduce a new expansion in coverage, and they want to put a price on it. They want to say, I'm going to do this for you, which I haven't done before. This is new, this is big, this is different, and therefore you should pay for it. And it's fair to ask you to pay for it. And quite frankly, there's a certain swiftness by which that desire to get paid for it goes by the wayside, unfortunately. Now, should an insurance carrier get more premium to take on more exposure? Probably anybody would say yes, maybe. But the reality is there's competition in the market. A lot of insurance carriers will do lots of different things, and they're not going to charge an additional premium for them. But our clients say that too. Okay, I can see that you can get me all these additional things. Is there a cost associated? And tell me where the cost is associated with what provision so I can choose. And so it's actually a pretty easy conversation when you say there's no additional premium for any of this stuff.